Well, that'll mean that's extra love.
glad we have it.
And I understand.
Coffee and
How are you? You got planned? Oh, we got engaged. Did he propose what I wanted to do?
how do you want to do that?
To get her daughter. Oh, she did. She just resigned.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just a technical thing before the meeting actually gets started. We've got 4 wireless mics that we're going to be using to field questions, because I believe there's also people on Zoom, and save time of having to repeat them and all that. They'll be scattered throughout as the questions start being asked. So please make sure when you're using the mics, you don't put the mic down here like this, and you don't eat the mic either. So just keep it so everybody can hear the question, so we don't have to repeat it. Thanks.
So at 11:15, so we will begin. I would like to open the meeting with prayer. Bob McMonigal, Chairman of the COC, will offer the prayer.
Thanks, Bob. Not only for the opportunity to do this, but for your leadership this past year. This is a prayer for growth of our church. Heavenly Father, we come before you with humble hearts, seeking your blessing for the growth of our church. We believe that you are the source of all growth, both in our personal lives and in the body of believers. We acknowledge that without your presence and power, our efforts are in vain. Father, we ask for your wisdom and discernment as we make decisions that impact the growth of our church. Help us to be sensitive to your leading and to follow your will faithfully. Give our leaders insight and vision that they may effectively shepherd and guide your flock. Lord, we pray for unity and love to abound within our church family. Help us to set aside our differences and personal agendas and instead focus on our common purpose of glorifying you. Grant us hearts of compassion and kindness towards one another, that we may be a shining example of your love to the world. Father, we lift up our evangelistic efforts to you. Equip and empower us to boldly share the good news of Jesus Christ with those around us. Open doors of opportunity for us to reach the lost and bring them into your kingdom. Give us a burden for the lost, that we may fervently pray for their salvation and be intentional in our outreach. Lord, we ask for your provision and blessing in every area of our church's growth. Provide the resources, both financial and human, that we need to carry out your work effectively. Bless our ministries, small groups and outreach programs, that they may bear fruit and bring glory to your name. This we ask in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Bob. Hugh? 64. Okay, we have 320 voting members, so we need to have 32. So we're twice as good as we need to be in all that we do. I pray. We need to approve the minutes from last.
I move that we approve the minutes. 2025.
Okay, it has been moved, and a second, Kathleen, your mother-in-law. Discussion. One of the things that we have the ability to do is to edit minutes as they're being spoken. And so at the end of the moment, you can see the minutes. If you don't approve them, if Kathleen had a typographical error, we can change it right away. But the Constitution says we are supposed to approve the minutes from the previous meeting. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So moved. The committee reports. You have had an opportunity to read through them. You can take your time and read through them at any time you would like. I'm not going to ask the chairman to stand up and to read them to you. So if you have any questions concerning any of the committee reports, they used to go from page 7 to 17. Gosh knows, we've edited so many times. I don't know if it's still 7 to 17 or not. If there are any questions, feel free. I'm saving stewardship for last because we're going to have a special presentation with that. Saving last in this group. Any discussion?
I'd just like to make an addition to the Anderson report. Addition on my part. I'm sorry. Okay. In addition to the Anna Circle report, I'd like to credit the little stars that were handed out at Christmas Eve service. That was a project of Anna Circle, but they were made by Brenda McDade, the little stars, and Carol Whitman was also involved with attaching them to the cards that were on that. So we thought that was something special, and we're glad that we could be a part of that. Thank you.
So you can hold on to it. Just hold on to it, and in case there's questions, we'll pass them around.
Okay, Mary Noel asked to make a comment, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It isn't about. Well, it's kind of about the meeting. It's about the congregation. I wanted to thank you for the last couple of months.
I've had a lot of, my brother had surgery, and my mother-in-law died. And I know you guys have been praying, and I want to thank you. My brother's in good condition now, he's home, his gallbladder's out finally, and my mother-in-law is in heaven with her husband, and I'm sure she's happy. And I thank you for all your prayers. And my sister-in-law keeps calling me and saying, make sure you tell your church, thank you. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Also, if you do not have an agenda, there are some available. If you do not have agenda, there are some available. If you do not have minutes, budget, they're available. So please make sure you get them in your hand. Okay, Nathan. Nathan's going to make a presentation on stewardship and specifically on a narrative budget. Sure. I think I was going to wait until Nathan was done with his stewardship presentation.
Thank you, Bob. Good morning, or almost afternoon, I guess. I am overjoyed with our progress with the capital campaign. These dollars are so important as you're seeing them at work right now. And thank you so much for those. As you can see, we had a good chunk from fundraising, and between the pledges fulfilled and all the donations we received, anybody believe that number? It's pretty awesome. So let's give ourselves a round of applause. As you can see, we have a little more to go. We have very faithful pledgers. Remind me, Bob, when I'm trying to remember, we started in September, is that right? So we have another year and a half, is that right? About a year and a half left. So as you can see, we're making really great progress. So I think that one's good, unless anyone has any questions about the capital campaign. Yes, Pastor?
How much of the pledges are still out there?
The question was how many pledges are still out there, and there are some. There are sometimes when financial things happen and we've got to adjust a little bit, but people have been very faithful with their pledges, and that has been a really great part of our campaign. As you can see, it's the majority of our campaign.
I have a quick question. So once you reach that number, once you get to the number, are you going to do the elevator and do the roof? Yeah?
Yeah, so I think it was last meeting, we voted to kind of provide the authority of the council to kind of prioritize some of those things. Definitely on the top of our list is roof and elevator, and then there's some other things as well if we have budget for that. Does that answer your question, Ruben?
Yeah.
Yeah, so specifically on the roof, we have some folks that are very good at roofing, and maybe the number for roofing is a little lower than what we were first expecting, which is a very great thing. The elevator looks like it might be a little bit more expensive. So. Quite a bit more expensive. Nothing like inflation. Okay, so that's coming later. So Bob will have a little bit more later. So this is on narrative budget. It was new to me about a year ago. It was a completely new concept, and welcome. Everybody remember all the effort we put into our mission and vision with the cohorts. There were a number of folks in this, I see cohort leaders in this group. And a lot of great feedback came in, and we developed our vision. Anybody want to read our vision? Yeah.
What happens because we live the mission? Oh, the value. We are a growing family, united in celebrating the love of Christ, welcoming and transforming our community, and empowering and inspiring members and youth in service. We have fellowship, it's most spelled family. Fellowship, build a welcoming and inclusive congregation where relationships flourish. Adoration, create engaging and spiritually enriching worship experiences. Ministry, serve others by meeting spiritual, emotional, and physical needs. Inviting, share the gospel and create a welcoming environment for all. We meet you where you are. Learning and teaching, equip members for lifelong discipleship and ministry. Youth, empower the next generation to develop a strong and lasting faith.
So everybody remember that one? I know it's been, we don't always look at it. And that's the goal of a narrative budget, actually, is putting our mission and vision, did it just change? Okay. Putting that into real life practice and making sure we're communicating effectively. So next slide. Go back one. All right, so a narrative budget, again, this is a new thing. We're focusing on, our start of the narrative budget journey is in learning and teaching and youth. And in the line item budget, you see those as discipleship and youth. All right? Our goal is, and this is what churches do, they create a narrative budget that complements the line item budget. Next slide. This making sense so far? All right, so what is a narrative budget? A narrative budget is the next step in communicating our mission and vision. It tells the story of how God is at work at Messiah. Lots of pictures, I can tell you that. It shows how we faithfully steward the resources entrusted to us. God has been an amazingly abundant God. Enhances the traditional column budget, our line item budget, rather than replacing it. The two exist, and you'll see here in the next slide if that works. Figure it out. Sorry, everything has 14 jobs right now. So this is an example, and this is Nathan's really crude attempt at producing things that look nice. So I'm an engineer, it's not my gift. So here, this is the one we're familiar with, the line item budget. We presented at our annual meeting, here we are. We propose the budget and we approve it, and it's available to all our members. This is a common, we know this one, right? Everybody knows in your head, you know what a line item budget is. What the narrative budget is, it incorporates our vision and mission, and it translates those numbers into what it does in real life. Does that make sense? This is on the welcome table. This is a way we, in a way, advertise our church. When people come in the door, they look at it and they say, "Wow, look at that beautiful picture of all those youth that are putting." I know it's small. Sorry. All those youth that are assembling shelves for helping out our community with the Lord's Pantry. Look at all those awesome young people that are somehow fitting all on the Safari Jeep. It tells our story. Because we know it, but not everybody outside these walls knows it. That make sense? All right, so now comes the money part of this narrative budget, because it's the budget, right? So in order for Rooted Together to meet, in order for us to have that awesome fellowship hall down there for our budding believers to do a craft today, we pay electricity, we pay natural gas, good grief, we pay natural gas. There's all sorts of, we have lights, we have all these things that help that happen, right? And those things cost money. But it's one of those things that not everybody wants to talk about because it's not nearly as fun as talking about it at a youth service project. So what we do is we create a pie chart and we try to divide up those things that are necessary to support our ministry. It's like The way I think of it is like a cost of entry already. Like in order for us to have a building, there's certain things that need to happen. There's certain bills we need to pay. So the slice that we think might be allocated to making sure the fellowship hall is all ready to go and our playground is ready to play on when VBS comes around, and those things, that gets added. Does that make sense? So although you'll see that the line item for discipleship and youth is small, honestly, and it needs to be bigger. But even though that's small, there's a cost associated with that helps that happen. Does that make sense? This is a joyful document. This is one that people walk in the door and they say, wow, this is a really good place to be. And I wanna just give Kim a little bit of time to, she'll do better than my crude attempt to make a marketing brochure.
Thank you, Nathan. Hi, everyone. I'm Kim, for whoever isn't familiar. I wanted to share with you, just like rewinding a little bit. Over the last year, I was able to go to 2 Synod workshops, and they really inspired and energized me to connect our mission to what is working for people with the youth. Briefly, the first one was hosted by Bishop Brian. We had youth leaders, all different experiences, newbies like me, and people who've been doing it for decades. And it was there to be, how can the Synod support youth at your church? Well, this led to a huge discussion about what actually works with the youth. How are we connecting them to God? What's working with them? What's bringing them to the church? So I took from that lots of ideas, and a lot of it was, have something at your church where the kids feel welcomed, where they feel safe and comfortable to participate fully. And also, take the children outside of your church. Let them see that faith is beyond these walls, that there is other kids their ages celebrating God and doing things connecting with God. So it's in the church, but also giving these service project experiences. We're going to look into doing some local retreats where they group with maybe other congregations. The second one I went to was more focused with children in worship. We do a great job having our playgrounds right here to welcome. We're like a sign, hey, children, you're invited. Our congregation is so welcoming to children. I think we're already ahead of the curve than a lot of congregations that I've heard about children. But we talked about children in worship, participating in the worship service. And also there's some churches who have a separate service that are more child-centered, a real high energy one. I was able to attend one of these children's services at another congregation. And it was so inspiring. At one point, the children get around in a circle, and you have like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, up to teenagers, and they're yelling out praises, they're yelling out prayers for people, and I was just really overwhelmed by how they were participating so fully. It was really inspiring. So I'm taking notes from that, I'm taking things from that, and trying to start putting those things into these things that we're offering here. You can see we have our budding believers. That's for our elementary age children. Yes, they are taken out of the worship service to go and learn the gospel story, but we're talking about it in a way they can understand. The Gospels have big words, right? And maybe their little brains aren't understanding that. So I'm teaching them, I'm talking to them about the story the way they can understand it and how they can apply that lesson to their life, which is really cool because I give them something like, okay, when you're at school this week, this is how you can be like Jesus. This is what you can take away. We also start by trying to incorporate something from the worship service. They're learning about the different types of prayers right now, so they're not missing out there. For our older kids, we have our monthly Rooted Together. The theme there is by a fruit of the Holy Spirit. I'm very excited this February I'm going to partner with Bob McGonigal and Kate Mitchell, where our theme is goodness. And the kids and the families are going to learn about our Thrive in Action teams. kids want to do good things, they want to, but they can't drive themselves and they don't have the money to do it. So these Thrive It teams and us adults are gonna support them. Hey, what do you see in your school that might need some service? And we're gonna help them and support them to bring service to the community, and they can fully participate and engage. What else here? And VBS. Oh, I see a bunch of the volunteers who were here last year for it. I mean, I think we can say we all had a lot of fun. You were all amazing, and I'm really excited for this summer. You can see we're starting really early this year because we want to get more of the community involved. I think starting a little later last year, people already had vacations planned, camps planned, so everyone is welcome. Our first planning meeting is tomorrow evening in Fellowship Hall at 6:30. Now, if you're someone who wants to be in there with the kids and you want to be there during vacation Bible school and feel that energy, would love you. If it's for one day, if it's for 2 days, if it's all 5 days, you are welcome. If the kid energy is a little too much and you're like, I'm creative and I would like to help and be a part of it, but the kids, somebody else can be with them, we welcome you. We love volunteers. There's plenty of planning to do beforehand. And if anyone knows anyone, I have sheets here planned. We just have dates for the first half of the year for all our youth events right now. Feel free, take one of these handouts that are on our green table out there. Share it with a kid in the neighborhood, share it with grandchildren, whoever you might like. Just come, they can just come, right? We welcome all the kids, right? So please feel free to share any of our events. My information's at the top if anyone has any questions about anything, okay? Thank you.
Anybody excited? If you haven't seen that table out there, you should spend 5 minutes and really look at it. It's awesome. Thank you, Kim. So that's a narrative budget. There's multiple ministries, as you can see on that pie chart, that we have to create content for. And just like Kim was asking for volunteers, I would really love some awesome creative people. So, yes, Ken.
It looks like, because this doesn't exactly line up with the categories, all the categories in the budget, so I'm assuming that somehow you spread peanut butter around some of those things like salaries, office administration, that kind of thing across the different groups?
Correct.
To get these percentages.
Yeah, there are multiple ways to do a narrative budget. The main thing is telling how we're at work, how God is at work within us. But yeah, there are several different strategies to doing that. There are times when you just separate it into 3 groups, which doesn't seem to align with our mission and vision so well. So ours is a little more challenging because we'll have to figure it out. Yes, we're working through that. Yes, Pastor.
Just to kind of piggyback, here, use this one. Thank you. To piggyback on what Ken brought up, yeah, the narrative budget, you don't see electricity, you don't see salaries, but if you look at April's time, my time, how do we interact, what does she do for the youth stuff, the family? What does Karen and Martha's time is more focused to worship, so the worship ministry. So their salary would be there. So yeah, it's one thing you don't see in a narrative budget is property and administrative, because it's across the story, telling the story of how we use our lives, our work.
Does it make sense to everybody? You'll see a real life thing hopefully sooner than later. There was a pastor and I went to this event, and we learned this lady was amazing. She lives in Fargo, North Dakota, and she's a gift, and she's offered to help us. But yeah, we need some creative folks and some folks that want to tell about how God's at work here. Thank you so much.
One item we didn't want to dump the narrative budget on you 100%. So we said this year, let's try Kim and her youth and her section of the budget. Let's work with her on a narrative budget. The rest of the budget that you'll see in a few moments is regular, just like normal. Church council will make decisions about what, if we go 100% all in for next year, or whether we just go 50% or something else. That'll be up to council. But what narrative budget is doing with now is trying to get you used to the idea through a small group of it. Ken?
Sorry. As far as switching over and that kind of thing, just a suggestion, it's hard to switch over until you have history behind them, so you have something to compare last year, the year before. So just shifting over to a narrative budget as what is being approved is going to take some transition time, so there is history, just some input on that decision making for the council.
Well, we will continue to have our regular budget this year, all those line items, so that history will be there. And I hear you very clearly.
Just a clarifying point, and after you ask your question, Ken, I omitted some things. This document is geared toward folks coming in the door. It's a affirmation for ourselves, like, oh wow, yeah, I forgot about that thing we did.
I think it's a great story.
Yeah, it's not at all nearly as detailed as what the line item budget is, and it's not intended to be nearly as detailed. Does that make sense? Yes, Pastor?
Again, to kind of hear that concern, your one screen earlier said, you always have the line item budget. It was at the top. Presented at the annual meeting, the line item budget, people need to keep track of where you spend stuff at. The narrative budget becomes the story on how that is, because if you look at a grid and you go, well, here's the salaries, or here's the, and we got to close the windows, we got to keep it hotter in the summer, we can't spend all that money on energy. Well, how do we use that energy? The energy is for worship. Everybody feels pretty comfortable and warm in here today, pretty cool in the summer. So, yeah, that may all go here, but we also need it for the rest of the building. So you kind of guesstimate on some of those stories. But that line item is important, because you just can't say Pico, I'm paying you from X, Y, and Z.
For instance,
So always be a line item, but how do we tell the story?
yeah, for instance, Fargo, North Dakota, this church in Fargo, they spend a lot in snow removal. That's one that is not sexy. I don't want to tell that story, but it is a thing, because it's for her church. It sits up on a hill, and there's a whole neighborhood below. And if they don't dump truck it out, it will flood the neighborhood. They spend a lot of money on snow removal. So we don't, yeah. Okay, so maybe it's all a swamp. Make sense? Everybody get it? We're hard at work. We'll get this going.
I've been told 4 times not to give up this mic. So would you look at the committee reports going from pages 11 to 17? And do I have a motion to accept the committee reports as printed? AJ? Second, Glenn. Any further discussion? All I can say is you can just get 2/10 of the enthusiasm of this church council. You just got 2/10. The other people didn't talk today, but believe me, they are enthusiastic, and I couldn't be more proud of what they do. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So be it. Now move on to, Sheila. This is the, this is the treasurer's report.
Yeah, and I don't really have anything to say about it. The treasurer's report stands as written, but if anyone has questions, I can attempt to answer them.
Are there any questions? Glenn?
Don't we need to approve the budget?
We didn't get there yet. This is just the treasurer's report from 2025.
Right, so the treasurer's report for 2025, the capital campaign income and expenses, and the flood income and expenses, those are all part of the treasurer's report. So if anyone has any questions about those?
Is there a motion to accept the treasurer's report for 2025? Dan Burgess, second. Dr. Colley? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Now, yes, Sheila, now Sheila had
So,
some correction.
yes, so, I did not really work on the team to create the budget, but I'm the one who put together the report that you see in the bulletin, and there are some mistakes that are all mine, I own them. So I just want to point out, the discipleship and youth total should be 3,500 instead of 3,000. On the next page, the office and administration total should be 69,100. Then on the last page, the totals excluding tithing should be 345, 325. And then, of course, that affects the totals down lower. Should be, the totals including tithing are 375, 327. And the net revenue then is negative 75, 327. So, just wanted to point that out. And in the discipleship and youth, you can kind of see where we're switching over from the line item to the narrative. So we're not going to use the older line item budgets. They've all been combined into those new 26 through 29 for the discipleship and youth narrative budget.
I bet chairmen of the different committees will have their own little secret line items running on their desk at home so that they know where they're spending things. That only seems logical to me, but the budget that the treasurer works on every month is going to be a little bit different for those for discipleship.
Right, so those expenses will go into those new categories for the year.
Yeah.
Instead of into the old line items.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, so now we can switch on to this year's budget. We had no chairman of finance, so when September came and it was time to work on this, it was me. So I own this. This is mine. I asked Bob McDade, who a major portion is property, to help me. I asked Dave Reiner, worship, to help me. And I asked Nathan to help me. And I asked Frank Stearns. And so I put it together. They got together with me and we tweaked it, whatever. Then I asked Pastor and Sheila, because Sheila knows it better than anybody. I mean, it's kind of a joke for me to be doing it, but she knows everything. But I felt guilty about, after 6 years, asking her to do it one more time. So,
But I never did it before, because I was the finance person, that's why.
So, the budget, the 26 budget is as presented. Is there a motion to accept the budget? Okay, Glenn Gilbert, a motion to accept it. AJ seconded. Discussion. I'm not supposed to give up my mic. Don't look at me.
Just,
Maybe you want this one now?
Hello?
Yeah, green light.
Does it stay on, so that?
So I guess a couple of questions. One is, last year we had a deficit. The deficit was significantly less than what the budget had. So I guess a couple of comments and a couple of questions. If you look at last year's budget, if you can go to the last page, that shows the final. Or, hey, so you saw last year it was negative 69, we ended up at negative 18. If you actually look through the budget, a lot of that decrease from 69 was things that were budgeted that we never actually spent money on. So there's a one big ticket line item in there of 20,000 for flood insurance. That carried forward to this year. On the flood insurance aspect, council is going to need to make a decision on what we do with flood insurance. So that's a future discussion. That's 20,000 that we may or may not end up spending. Again, where did that come from? Some of you may recall when we take FEMA money, FEMA then requires you to take flood insurance. What happens if you don't? Generally speaking, what happens if you don't is if you get flooded again, don't ask FEMA for any money. If you do the flood insurance, then they theoretically would help you again if there was another flood. I just want to give you a little bit of perspective on that. Like I said, council ultimately is going to have to make a decision on that. If you see how much our rebuild project is, 4 million, right, for the building piece, roughly, what would happen in another flood? So we elevated the classroom building by 4 feet. That was intentional. That's 1 foot above, actually a little more than 1 foot above what the last flood was. That qualified for FEMA dry flood proofing, and that's how we got a lot of the extra money. Obviously, here in the sanctuary and in the fellowship hall, it's still at grade. If we were to get a 3-foot flood, it would look very similar to what it did in the past flood. The big difference is that if you think about what that building was when we first had the flood, a largest portion of our remediation cost was for that building. 70 to 80% of what it would cost if we just put it back the way it was that building. So the notion is if we get a flood less than 4 feet, there's very little that needs to happen in that building. Okay? What would it take to do this building, the sanctuary, if we got a 3-foot flood? So you've noticed a few changes. Don't know if all of you realize the organ is actually on a float. So think a dock. If it flooded, that's supposed to float up. The pews now are solid wood pews. They were a big chunk of money for us. Solid wood survived. We had several solid wood pieces of furniture, cleaned them up, and they were good. The water came in, the water went out, all good. Removable cushions on the pews, makes it easier to replace those or even move them out if we know there's a flood coming. So there were a number of mitigation steps, even the flooring. We actually tested the flooring idea because water came in during the construction and we had to vacuum out all of this. It worked as intended. The pews worked as intended. They were solid wood, no damage done. So there's a number of mitigation steps that we took for this. In general, we were looking at probably about 100,000 if we had another flood in here to get back in operation, and significantly faster. Likewise for the fellowship hall, even for us redoing the fellowship hall came in at roughly 100,000. So you're looking at about 200,000 if there was another flood less than 4 feet. If we get a flood of 3 feet or 4 feet again, should we really stay? Right? So that's a decision that council needs to make. The reason I brought it up here was if you have feelings about that, you need to talk to council, let them know your feelings. My personal feeling is, I don't know $20,000 a year is necessarily worth it for what it would cost us to do something, but that's my personal opinion.
Let me just say that being the person who wrote this up, I was much more in favor of putting the money into the budget and not needing it than not putting it in and then have the treasurer make eyes at me about where we're gonna pay for this $100,000 that just happened. So, I hope that, we don't need the 20,000.
So I think we may need to do it this year in order to close out the project with FEMA.
Thank you.
So we may need to spend, I think we probably will need to take out 1 year's worth of insurance. My understanding is that you have to pay for it all up front. It's not like a monthly payment system like at your home or a quarterly, whatever. So I think we probably will need to buy it this year. But I tend to agree with Kent, once that obligation and we get everything closed out, then I tend to agree that I don't think it's worth it.
That'll be church council's decision.
Exactly, that's my personal feeling.
Bill, I saw your hand, you,
Sheila answered my question.
okay. Glenn,
Do we have a quote for the insurance at all?
Well, that 20,000 quote is actually a couple of years old, so it could potentially be more than that.
So the issue for me is what floodplain? Did we have a floodplain map at all?
Yeah.
So we know, are we at the 100, is that, the flood was 100-year one? Yeah, it was actually more, we are, interestingly enough, this facility, the whole facility, is just outside, we're like a little peninsula, outside the 100-year floodplain. It's just risen enough, I mean, like, we're high enough that it's, like, if you looked at it, we are a peninsula, water on 3 sides. It's almost like we paid somebody off and said, no, move the line that way a little further.
I have a question. So the organ is the most expensive item here, and it's supposed to float. How do you know it's going to float? Have you tested?
faith. So I have faith in the architect.
Yeah, so no, we haven't tested. You can actually look at what's underneath there. If you've seen floating docks, like out on the water, any place there are the big pontoon kind of floating docks, that's what's actually underneath that. So no, we haven't tested. The architects that were designing everything, that's what they spec'd out for the size, the weight of the organ, right? Those kinds of things. It would be a little difficult to test.
I understand that, but they give some kind of warranty to whoever built that.
Other than the architect's plans.
Yeah.
But it's also raised up as a standard, right?
Yeah,
Like,
so one, it's 6 inches taller than it was before, plus it's on the platform that's another 18 inches up. So essentially, it won't even start floating until we have almost 2.5 feet, 2 feet of water.
Greg.
Go.
Not to be too big, how many companies did we consult for the flood insurance?
There was one company, again, a couple of years ago when we first entered into all this flood stuff. So that's work that council's still gonna have to do.
So there might be some better options we don't know about.
As Sheila said, it could be lower, it could be higher, right? When you take a look at, because we elevated that, that should drop the premiums a little bit because there's less probability of that section being damaged, those kinds of things, but that's an unknown.
We now have in 10 minutes, we will have a finance chairman, and one of his first responsibilities will be to review all of the insurance policies because there's gonna be a lot of changes in insurance. We got a $5 million facility instead of a $1 million facility. There will be changes, so Finance Committee will have to investigate all of our insurance policies.
Keep going out. If you're looking at that. Looking at the insurance being a requirement for FEMA, would, if it, God forbid it happened again,
I'm sorry, Bob, we're gonna have to steal your mic.
I can just be really loud.
All right.
Can people hear me? Alright, so what I was saying is, doing it broadcasting loud, is wouldn't it be worth the 20,000, let's say it is, if God forbid it happened again, so that FEMA would help us out with, 100 times that? So that's where my question would be with the flood insurance.
And they will be decisions that council will have to make.
Yes. So the good news is your incoming treasurer, his career is in insurance. So, I think we'll have, between him and Bill, we'll have some good people working on the insurance aspect of things.
Okay, Kent, I'm not sure where you're at.
So I apologize kind of, but I wanted the congregation to understand what that 20,000 line item was for them. The other thing is there were some other things from last year that were in there that we didn't spend, like everything around the preschool director, some of those kinds of things. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because there are a few line items that I think are maybe extravagant, given that we're proposing a negative 75, even if you took out some of those things that we didn't spend, 30,000, 40,000, that's still negative 30 kind of thing. In particular, there's a line item for 4,000 for reopening. Everybody should know I'd love to have this grand gala celebration to open the facility. It's been a long time coming. But given the state of our budget, I have concerns around spending money for those kinds of things that, when you're proposing, even if you took out some of those things, it's still going to be negative 40, negative 30. Yes, we have rainy day funds and some of those that can fund kind of shortfalls for a while. We had an 18 grand shortfall this year. If it's 18, 20 grand next year, right? Those funds go away very, very quickly. So that's my concern with the budget.
And again, we put that in there so that there would be money available for those people to make decisions about it. I don't think we're going to go to some place where we spend $10,000 on a celebration. We could have a celebration in a fellowship hall and have people bring things. But I didn't want Carol, because this was a question that was brought up a number of times. What are we doing for celebration? What are we doing? What are we going to do? And that was a year ago. That was for June. Now it's here. And I don't want Carol to feel that she doesn't have any money, but church council needs, or the congregation needs to offer her some place to be able to spend some money. Church council might decide that we'll have a gala celebration and each of you will have to give $25. We don't spend it. We don't know. But I just don't want to have the treasurer staring at me about how we're going to pay for this. Sheila's stare is going to be a lot. No, never mind. Other questions about the budget? Glenn, is your hand up?
Just one question, is we're being asked to approve a budget with $75,327 plus.
Yes. That's the total, including tithing, $30,000 approximately. We tithe 10% of our income. Last year, it was 300,000, and so it's 30,000 and something there. That I feel like I have to be honest here. The budget includes a 3.5% increase for staff, and certainly under the conditions that the staff has worked under this year. The government came out and said 3.2 or 3.3. The Senate came out and said 3.5, and so we took that and we put that into the budget as an item. Kate.
So just a clarification, because this is not my area, but it looks like last year, am I correct in saying that we approved a budget that had a $69,000 shortfall? And we managed the money extremely well, and it only was an $18,000
Correct.
shortfall. So I think that's what we're asking again.
Part of that is just, like, a big chunk of that is just money that you need to spend, like, 1,000 insurance.
Right, exactly.
Which is in this, we have.
Right. So,
Mary Lou.
I know this was working, blue and black purple.
I'm just curious about the percentage that we give to the Senate in tithing. Is that standard? Is that every year? I just haven't paid attention before, but almost 50% of what we tithe goes to the Senate, and only 6% is going to Cooksville Municipality.
I missed part of our tithing. So much is going to the Senate, and a lesser amount is going to the other.
is that standard, is that required? Like that, where does that percentage come from? How does that 46.67? Is that dictated, or is that our choice?
Like Scripture says, we need to tithe our giving. We tithe from our own households, I pray, but we know we don't. The Senate has ministry responsibilities for these 5 or 6 counties, and they put out a budget too, depending on and asking for what we can do. So congregations look to tithe to the Senate. We only give 5% of our budget of income. Other congregations give 10% or more, and some give 1%, if any. So the 5% is, how do we respond? You heard Kim respond about what she's benefited from our Senate's work. You'll hear Bob in council always say, did you see the Senate email? What we see and do. You see, that's part, and what they get from us, they take 50% and pass it to the larger church for the work that they do. So they give 50% to the larger church. We get, let's say, I don't know, is it 10,000 we give? I don't know. 14. We give 14. So they give 7 to the larger church. They work off our 7. Like, we get a tithe from all of us, and then we give it to Coatesville Kids for Ministry, to the Lord's Pantry, to our Senate, because we're part of that family of the ELCA. That's how we work as the church. Coatesville Kids, they have a lot of churches in their community that also support them. We're support here. At home, my tithe, our tithe, goes to the church, and we give to local ministries that we support. Then I give to our, like Penn State always asks me for money, even though they got that great new stadium. And they play hockey in it. And all that, so that's part of how do we reflect on our call to ministry and mission. And if you heard what we preach and look at how we proclaim it, that's what it's about. So yes, we give 14,000 and we give less here. I give nationally, I give internationally also. Hi, I'm sorry, honey, where are you? I always say we give. We support stuff around the world. Messiah also, good Amispa. We give across the world. So how do you give locally, how do you give to that national level, and how do you give above? And since we're part of the church, you're part of Messiah, we ask you to tithe to us. And maybe that's something we need to look at. Because we base our budget on unknown numbers. We have no idea what we're going to get next year or this year. So we guess at it. My wife was going to add something to that.
And I'm adding this as a member, not as the spouse of the pastor. And I got up to just mention to him because we're looking at the expenses, but that's based on, and that deficit is based on expected income. And that's the unknown, as Tim just said. But that is based on last year's giving. Our choices are, do we cut ministry? I don't like that idea. The other option is, do we each find a way to add just a little bit more in the offering plate? And that can mean just going out to dinner one last time, a week. So that I just wanted to share. We're looking at a deficit based on prior giving. One way to do it is to cut expenses, cut programs. The other way is to be generous.
Any other comments? Sir?
You said to cut fundings and things. Instead of doing that, couldn't we do more fundraisers? Like, couldn't we do like a bingo?
We did that.
But couldn't we do
No,
more?
we did that.
Couldn't we do more of those to get more people to interact with the church?
We could.
Instead of cutting all these programs?
Just to be clear, you didn't hear me say cut programs. We're not cutting programs. Unless we have to, unless it becomes urgent. But yes, we could do fundraisers, and we have done fundraisers for the capital campaign. And if we did fundraisers, it might be directed in that area. But the capital campaign is healthy, but it needs more money. Just like I was in a conversation yesterday, and the lady said, well, you're going to have to ask for more money. And I said, absolutely, I'm not ashamed of that. We always ask all of us to grow. And so, I'm asking you to grow. If you accept this budget, we're asking you to grow. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not ashamed of that. Okay.
And I like the idea of more programs and more things to try to bring in income. We could use Thrivent funds as well. What we need people with ideas and time to help do that. So anyone that has ideas for increasing funds or doing more things that can bring more people to our church or bring in more money, anyone on the council would appreciate those ideas, and then your helping hands.
And just one thing that I just wanted to say was we got a lot of money from FEMA to redo what we had to do here. And I just think that it's good that, we also start to give back as well. So in order to do that, we're gonna have to, have programs to be able to give back to the community. And just be able to expand our reach. So, just one question.
I'm very serious when I said we got $4 million from FEMA, right? Plus or minus? Okay, plus or minus, okay. Any other discussion on the budget?
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
The budget for 2026 as submitted.
Is there a second? Mrs. Groff. Mother-in-law. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Election of church council. Kathleen Groff has volunteered to come back for a second term as its secretary. David's agreed to come back for a second term as music and worship and music, worship and amp. Okay. Carol Reiner as fellowship. She is completing an unexpired term. Bill Whitehead, his first term as finance. John Raymond, who not only is a wise treasurer, I'm sure, but he's also on a cruise right now. And we have an opening for vice president. Constitution requires that I ask, is there anyone from the congregation who would like to volunteer to be on church council at this time? Is there anyone who would volunteer to take the unexpired term as vice president? Seeing none, then I would ask that the slate of church council members be proclaimed by, or be elected by proclamation. All those in favor? Aye. So moved. The audit committee, the Constitution says for 3, Glenn Gilbert, Frank Leota, and Ken Stuvey, and they will be overseen by the newly elected Bill Whitehead, and Bill will be calling that group together sometime in the next month, I would hope. Nominating committee is open. Now, Mrs. Yamasaki, the Constitution says that one person from the nominating committee is to be an outgoing council member. No. I refuse to ask you. No. But anyway, we have openings for nominating committee right now. I have no clue why that is the way it's written, but it's written. But we do have openings for the nominating committee, and I would be happy at any time for anyone who would like to volunteer to be on the nominating committee. The nominating committee is one who looks to get volunteers for whatever positions open up. To be honest with you, standing here right now, I only know of one opening for next year, and that's position of president. But I have to go and research what others need to be found for next year. So the nominating committee will leave as unfilled. At this time, I probably would like to publicly thank Sheila. By the way, Sheila's not leaving the rebuild, the FEMA portion. She and Ken are continuing on with that until the end, hopefully sooner than, actually the end has to be in June.
Our current deadline for completion of everything is June 30th.
Yeah, June 30th is, so she's going to continue on with that. But I would like to thank Sheila. 6 years is a long time. 6 years, there's a lot of people shaking heads right now. 6 years is a long time, and 6 years is a long time being the treasurer when money is so short. If we had millions, it would be, I could do it. So Sheila, thank you.
You're not getting the altar flower.
I thought about getting flowers because I'm trying to save money. Glenn.
You did proclamation for the council for voting, you didn't do it for the audit group. Let's do the same thing.
Okay. On proclamation, we accept the names that are on the audit committee for this year, this term. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Old business. Nathan, do you want to say anything more about capital campaign?
Unless there's questions.
Okay. I would just like to say that we are only a little more than a year and a half into this, and we're $40,000 short of $350,000. I couldn't afford to buy you all roses, but you deserve it. That's remarkable. But the journey isn't over yet. I would like Bob McDade, who has become the resident roofer, to just say a bit about what's happening with the roof. Listen, I've broken the rules so many times, it doesn't matter.
There was a lot of questions about the condition of our roofs in the fellowship hall and the sanctuary. And in December, council voted to accept my recommendation to hire a roofing consultant because I felt like we needed somebody that was unbiased and that was looking out at our best interests to know what we needed to do. And he's already completed an evaluation and written up a report and submitted that, and that's available for anybody that wants to see it. The bottom line is the fellowship hall roof is in good shape. It was replaced in 2009, and the sanctuary roof has 2 layers of shingles on it, which means that there was some re-roofing done, and we believe that was in 2006. But there's a lot of problems with the roof, and that's where we're getting the leaks. So right now, we've got new, like 12-page specifications that our consultant has developed, and he either has already sent out requests for bids, or he will be doing that this week. The intention is to re-roof the sanctuary and fix some of the minor problems with the fellowship hall roof that he discovered during his inspection. And we feel like he's going to try to get 3 to 4 bids, so there'll be competition to get the work, and we hope that'll help bring the costs down. And the intention right now is to do the work in April or May, which he feels is the ideal time for doing this kind of job. That's basically where we stand right now.
Thanks to Dr. Conway for recommending this gentleman. We've been very happy so far. Bob, ballpark, 40,000? 40,000.
That's a guesstimate now, that's not even an estimate. But we're looking at $40,000 to replace this roof. Church Council has developed a wish list of how we would think we would spend the capital campaign money. And on every council member's list, the roof was first. It won. We're doing the roof with capital campaign money. Second on the list was the elevator. And Kent, do you want to just give numbers, please?
So if you recall, a couple of meetings ago, we've had somebody around approving funds and that kind of thing. What the congregation approved was $90,000 for the elevator, and that was based on bids that Holden got when we first started all of this, so 3 years ago. Unfortunately, when he went to update those bids, to actually start the work, we had told him, hey, let's move forward with it. The cheapest one was just under $150. So he reached out to others, just general, like friends of his and contacts that he has that do elevator work. And they said, yeah, that's not unusual. The prices have significantly increased. Because we were wondering, it's like, okay, one of the bids was the guy that originally like knows everything we're doing. So, you know, might be a little biased kind of thing. But he reached out and he feels comfortable that those numbers are in line with where that industry is today.
And so, $40,000 for the roof and $150 for the elevator pretty much wipes us out. Capital campaign money wipes.
Well, that's 190,000 out of 350, and we've already spent 100, so that's 290.
Yeah. So, that'll, just to let you know, that's number 2 on the list. Now, Church Council could probably rearrange the list. I'm not sure about that. But that's where we stand right now as far as those 2 items. Okay, my understanding, the timeline with FEMA, just very...
So the general process is we have to have all our, technically, we have to have all our invoices submitted by that June 30th deadline, and then there's a closing process that we go through. We want to be all done by June 30th, just to make sure that there isn't anything missed or anything like that. So from a FEMA perspective, that's where we're at. One of the things to know, and this is FEMA reimburses for 90%, up to 90% of your grant. So if our grant for the building portion was 4.2 million, I don't know what 90% of that, but it's upper threes, right? We've already hit that 90%. Part of the reason why we want to close it out as soon as possible, that last 10%, we have to float until we close out the grant. And if we have invoices that go above that 90%, FEMA will give us that money. But they won't give us that last 10%, or if we need 5% of like half of it or whatever it is, they won't give us that until we actually close out the grant. And that would be closing out the grant. There are 3 main projects: contents, immediate remediation, and then the building piece. All of those will get closed out at the same time. So part of the reason, yes, we have until June 30th, we're in the 90%, we're over the 90% cap, which means we're floating those funds. So we want to close it out as soon as possible so we can recoup those funds. I don't know, Sheila, if you have anything else?
Okay, thanks, Ken.
While I'm up here, any other questions around the rebuilding? We're in the final stretch, as you can see lines out there, they're getting ready kind of to put down some of the flooring and.
When do you think all the rebuilding will be done? What's going on?
Right, the question is, when will the rebuilding be done? Right now, Holden's schedule goes through the end of February. I believe it'll move into March. There will be some punch list items that will have to wait until the spring. Bob, you brought up the brick wall on the backside that's exposed, that will have to get stuccoed, not really the most opportune time to do with the temperature at 10 degrees. So some things on the punch list may end up having to wait until, the weather warms up and that kind of thing, which I don't see an issue with Holden. The big issue that we have is we want to make sure that all our invoices, he invoices us for anything that is needed.
Okay.
Any other questions around rebuilding?
Hopefully, next annual meeting, we will not be talking about it. April.
Are they going to do anything about the driveway? Are they going to resurface the driveway, the parking lot? Is that in the thing phase?
Well,
I don't know who's for, but is there any plans for resurfacing the driveway? It's pretty dug up in different spots.
so from a driveway perspective, there are some patches that had to be done as part of the reconstruction because we did a trench, going out for drainage and those kinds of things. And then I think Nathan and Bob were getting quotes for patching different areas. Some of that is potentially also on kind of that next item there around ExxonMobil, and that kind of thing. So that's where it is. I don't know, Nathan or Bob, if you want to say anything about that.
The other thing, caveat with patching the driveway, is also marking the parking spaces and the parking lot. To me, other than that thing that's out there on the street level.
Put it closer to Karen.
The big, as big an issue is lining the parking lot, because that has just been destroyed too. Just not having been done in 3 years period. Nobody to blame, but it needs to be done. Kent said ExxonMobil, so I'll take care of that one. I'm doing a good job on it so far. We are still in litigation with our lawyers that we hired 3 years ago. They continue to be back and forth with ExxonMobil. There is very little movement, in my opinion. And here's the problem. They charge $350 an hour. And I have trouble making a phone call. I'll be totally honest. Because I know the phone call is going to cost $175, because we'll talk for a half an hour. So the litigation is going very slowly. Now, it gets worse. The last comment that I had with the lawyer, they would like for us, since we're close to being done, would like for us to get a reappraisal of the property. We had one appraisal done, they would like to have another, because the lawyers feel that that would give them some oomph when they argued with each other about how much our property was worth. Well, to get the appraisal is $7,500. Now, where in the heck are we getting that? So, I can't honestly come to church council and say, hey, I think we ought to get that appraisal done, because we don't have it, as been pointed out. So, we're stuck a little bit. You need to have money to make money. Well, we ain't got the money right now. So that's where the litigation is. The thought all along was that we would take the money and put it into the parking lot and put it into the driveway, and we'd have the most beautiful driveway on Lancaster Avenue. But that's I don't think I'll be driving anymore when that happens, the way it's going now. So that's litigation. Along with that, we missed it, the preschool has not moved along. We advertised in congregation, we advertised in public, we advertised by word of mouth, we've had people put out feelers, but it's kind of hard to get excited when you're looking at dry walls that are dusty and dirty, and so we kind of said that. We're going to advertise next on Facebook to try to make something there. Now that we're closer to an end, we have some other little feelers out, but right now, the problem is we should be out getting kids now. Kids are already signing up for next fall, and we don't have anybody in place. And that's a problem, and that's where we are with the preschool. We're still in a dilemma. Questions on old business, any of that? Okay, then new business finally. Kent, sincerely, thank you for your time. I have renewed faith in the United States Academy. Sheila, thank you again. I would like to say to Darren that maybe you should go on a cruise, since the incoming treasurer is on a cruise, but thanks. They are, okay. Good. You're a good man, Darren. Thanks to all the subcommittees, Anna Circle, Jonathan Group, all of those groups that meet. We have a number of groups that are meeting here in the building every week. Let me just say one final thing. People have worked really, really hard to get this to this point. And now this last month, things are gonna happen. Furniture's coming in, carpets are coming in, walls are being painted. I thought the walls looked beautiful a month ago, and I was immediately reprimanded for that, and that got changed. But be very, very careful about standing around saying, oh my God, that purple stinks. What the heck is that? These people made decisions. Be with them. Don't be so quick to criticize, or better yet, join the committee. I said thanks to Sheila enough. That's it for you.
I'd just like to call out one person, Frank Rossi. Frank has been running this day-to-day meeting with Holden, all of that kind of thing. Even the feedback that I got from Holden was he really enjoyed this job. Yes, he's in New Jersey. Yes, it's a 2-hour commute every time he comes down here. Those kinds of things. But he has consistently expressed that this is probably one of his most favorite jobs. And working with Frank has been extraordinary. Frank with his construction background and everything else, and just his demeanor in working with Holden and all of the different crews. So I just want to say thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second, Judy Sterner.
So moved. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
Thank you.